Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last day of our Career Carnival 2021. Allow me to introduce myself again. My name is Queenie, and this is my pleasure to be the MC for the event. Throughout the past week, I hope our participants have gained the opportunity to get their careers to the next level by attending all the insightful forums, webinars, meeting our employer partners, as well as connecting with our experienced professionals, mentors, from different industries. Once again, thanks for being with us until the end of the event. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Justin Ong, President of CFA Society Malaysia, to moderate Priming the Next Generation for a Sustainable Future Forum. At the moment, we also have our panelists, Tunku Dr Alina Alias, Darina Yusof, and Omar Siddiq on the stage.
Hey, hi everyone, fearless member, candidate, and friends of CFA Society Malaysia. Welcome to the Career Carnival 2021. Navigate your passions to reality. What a lovely Saturday that we are spending some quality times together. This is the fourth career forum for those of you at attended from Tuesday to Thursday that we have planned for you guys. And it's a senior leadership forum with a title, Priming the Next Gen for Sustainable Future. The word senior here may suggest that we could be the older bunch, we could by average age. And on the other hand, it could mean that it's a heavyweight forum that each of the distinguished panelists has come a long way in their career from where they were to where they are today, right? So there will be a lot of wisdom there to be downloaded for today. As a moderator, would like to call out the hindsight from the panelists, looking at some of the past to draw lesson learned. Hindsight is the first part. Moving on to the insight, right? Looking at the current situations and development. Finally, the foresight by borrowing the lens from the panelists and the vision how the future may potentially look like. So please remain focused as we're going to discuss about the hindsight, insight, and foresight in priming the next generations like each of you for sustainable future. Before we get things started, we'd like to do a simple poll, just to get to know you a bit better, right? So Queenie, can we get a poll question ready for the first one? Yep, I think the first questions now is really for the panelists and myself to get to know you a bit more in terms of where you are in your current career situations, whether you are undergrad, fresh grad, young professional with less than 3 years experience, middle level to senior management, experienced non-finance professional, but looking to switch, right, into finance industry or others, right? Feel free to send in your feedback. So JC, do we get a result ready?
Hello, Justin. We can see the results on the stage. Now, currently, we have 33 votes.
Okay, cool. Can you share the result with the panelists? Maybe can you read it out?
Okay, sure. For now, we have 60%, which is 20 votes for undergraduates and fresh graduates, and also 6 votes for young professionals with less than 3 years experience, and 6 votes for middle level to senior management, and 2 votes for experienced non-finance professionals who is looking to join the finance industry.
Great. Thanks for the insight. I think panelists, 60% are undergrad and fresh grad. moving on to the next questions.
All right.
Right. Can we now have the question number 2? Right. In your personal view, what are some of the mega trends that you are seeing that's happening or would happen to finance industry that would in your view, that would help to shape and reshape the form of industry? I think there are a few options here that you can choose from, and you can click more than one answer per se. I think fintech, climate and sustainability, blockchain, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud, big data analytics, etc. We'd love to hear from you. JC, do we have a result ready?
Yes. Currently, we have 96 votes coming in, and the highest votes for now is fintech, and also following by climate and sustainability, and also big data analytics. And the rest is blockchain. We have 12 votes, and also AI for 16 votes, and cloud for 10 votes.
Great. So top threes in the results are fintech, climate and sustainability, and big data analytics, right?
Yes.
Maybe move on to the last questions that we have prepared. Yep, great. I think the last questions that we have kind of put together will be, how are you seeing your career prospect, given 60% of you are fresh grad or are graduating soon, right? And as we're going through pandemics, job market is going through certain challenges. Just want to kind of hear from you, how are you seeing your career prospect? So we have designed the four sort of scheme answer here: 100% bullish, cautiously optimistic, more bearish than bullish. Last one is really, it could be better, right? So let's hear from you in terms of your sentiment. All right, I start to see the votes slowly coming in. Great. I think panelists, I think we have about 8 to 9%, 100% bullish about their career. About 58%, right? Cautiously optimistic. About 14% more bearish than bullish. And we got close to 20% of them thinks that, hey, things could be better, right? In the job market today. All right. Maybe we can end the poll questions now, JC?
Okay, sure.
All right, I think with that, we'll kind of want to introduce the three distinguished panelists for today. I suppose lady first. Our first female panelist is a board member, an independent director with several listed companies in Malaysia. And how often, guys, we get a board member to spend a Saturday, some quality time with us during a career event, right? This is none other than Tunku Alina. Alina, you want to say hi to the audience and tell us a bit more about your career journey?
Thanks a lot, Justin, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, CFA, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to spend this morning with all of you. So very quickly, I am a lawyer by profession. But within that big definition, I've had several reinventions. I like to think about reinventing myself. So I started my career during a very bad economic time in the 1980s. And there were not many jobs available, a lot of bankruptcies. So we didn't have much choice. I was very grateful to find a job. And I started at the bottom of the ladder in practice as a litigator, meaning a court-going litigator. But later, I evolved into an insolvency practitioner. So through litigating so many bankruptcies, I became an expert in insolvency in the early 1990s. And with the new millennium in 2000, the trend turned to all things IT. So I went with the flow and I started to learn about cyber law, which was at that time new. Nobody knew about it. After 15 years of litigation, I decided to hang out my ropes and became a corporate lawyer, stayed in the office. And with my clients, I went into overseas investments and acquisitions. And then eventually, with the popularity of Islamic banking, I undertook my PhD in Islamic finance. Today, although I still maintain my practicing cert, I am no longer in active practice. And most of my time, I serve the boards of companies. But the first company that I served was an Islamic bank. And that was a very rich experience. So I'm also very active in the sustainability space, especially climate change and biodiversity matters. Thanks.
Thank you, Tunku Alina. Such an interesting career journey. Looking forward to your sharing in a bit. Moving on, for those of you who are monitoring job market closely, you'll probably realize that risk and compliance related work are hot and highly demanded ever since the global financial crisis. I personally met many of the CFA chartered holders and candidates moving into a risk role, including treasury risk, market risk, credit risk, etc. Right. With that, would like to invite Darina Yusof, the Chief Risk Officer of Standard Chartered Bank Malaysia Berhad, to join us on stage. Darina, do you want to say hello to the audience and introduce yourself a little to the audience?
Hi, good morning. Welcome and thank you all for spending your Saturday mornings with us. You know, when I look back in my school and university days, you know, in those days, you're like, if you join banking, you'll be a boring banker. And I never thought I'd be a boring banker. You know, I couldn't afford to go to university, or rather my parents couldn't afford it. So I actually was under a JPA scholarship. And I was super excited to join the diplomatic services under my JPA scholarship bond. But financial crisis, you know, being what it is, that meant I needed to pursue alternatives. And that has taught me the first lesson of my life. Always have a plan B in your back pocket, risk management. So 30 years later, multiple finance roles from sales, risk management, strategy, and including a short getaway at culinary school. Here I am. I'm Chief Risk Officer for Standard Chartered Bank Malaysia Berhad, and you know, really enjoying myself. So thank you all, and great and excited to be here.
Thank you, Darina. I can see the amount of love that being sent to you. Lastly, I think a dashing gentleman, a key man with one of the largest banking group in ASEAN across MIST, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand, looking after the group wholesale business. With this, let's welcome Omar Siddiq, CFA from CIMB Bank. Omar, you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Justin, Tunku Alina, Darina, and all of you. Thanks for, as Darina said, you know, spending your Saturday with us. Just very quickly, post-university, I ended up in an accounting firm. I'm more traditionalist progression for me. I started as an auditor and I got my qualifications. And then I moved into corporate finance in the same accounting firm. And then I undertook my CFA. And then post the CFA, I stayed with the firm for in total about 9.5 years. And then I ended up in banking in CIMB. And then I did my sort of service with CIMB for about 10 years in investment banking. Then for my sins, I was asked to go to Khazanah, the Strategic Wealth Fund of Malaysia. And then within 6 months, I was booted down to Malaysia Airlines to facilitate the turnaround and the transformation at the time. we did what we had to do, and then I think we handed over to a new management set, and then I had a brief sojourn at RHB, after which I rejoined CIMB, and that's where I am today. Thank you.
Amazing career journey, Omar. All right, guys, I think let's get things started, right? I think the first part of it, if you look at the title of the forum for today, Priming the Next Generations for Sustainable Future, personally, two keywords come out very strongly: sustainable future, right? With that, maybe we'd like to invite Alina to share with us some of your perspective about what does sustainable career mean to you.
Thanks, Justin. Okay, so you asked us to consider hindsight, insight, and foresight. Okay,
That's right.
So I'll go in that order. So you all will probably guess how old I am, but when I started my career in 1980s, people stayed in the job with one employer for 20 to 30 years. And then some of them even retire with the same employer. Yeah, at that time, I can remember, I see people going on stage for the long serving awards, 30 years, 40 years. I was like, wow. But then since the mid 1990s, with the prosperity of the nation, and then job seekers become more mobile, they tended to stay no longer than 10 years. And today it's common for me to see on a CV 10 years of 1 to 2 years maximum. So you can see the progression. But it seems that nowadays, I think individuals are more adventurous, and you don't mind taking the risk on new roles, which is fantastic, yeah? And I believe this is much due to the security that we have in our country, also the availability of our parents and dual income families. So I think that has allowed young people today to expand and be brave. So to me, there is no one sustainable career. I think over the course of your productive life, you could have several different roles, even with one employer, or with different employers, as you can see from three of us. So my answer to your question specifically, what a sustainable career looks like, I think it depends on the individual. A person might have 2 or 3 good roles or careers over his or her lifetime. What is important is you set yourself up towards a sustainable life rather than a sustainable career. So you shift your focus onto yourself, and that will allow you to develop the adaptive mechanism that's valued for today's work culture as well as going forward. And because most of you that's listening to us, I believe millennials and older Gen Zs perhaps, encompassing between 18 to 40 years old. I think in Malaysia, that is about, what's the total data? I think Gen Z is 43.43%, millennials 40.86%. So I'm a dinosaur. And the median age is approximately 30.3 years today. So as a country, we are a young country, but we are slowly aging. And by 2050, our median age will be 40 years. So when you look at this trend and you think about what is going to be a sustainable life, which is going to be a driver for your career choice, I think it's important to take into account these things, yeah, your demographics, and also to understand what is the preferences of the market and the employers. Okay, so for me, how do you get a sustainable life? I.e., how you can have meaningful role and career going forward. I think 10 to 15 years from now, Malaysians must know definitely how to operate in a digital world, be open to porous borders, meaning you have to be able to move comfortably between disciplines and subject matter. So for me, even though I'm just a lawyer, but I have to, if I were young like you today, I probably will have to be comfortable moving into maybe fashion, for example. Third, the ability to communicate and transact with any matter of individual and levels in society is very important. You'll be able to work in fluid teams. So you're not stuck in one team. You will constantly move from different team to different team, and you have to have that agility. But you also have to have very strong fundamentals in your own domain of expertise. Also, I think the attitude is you have to be continually learning, continually changing, not to be afraid of that. And then the mindset is you want to contribute positively to your community and the environment. So that's as far as hindsight and insight is. Thanks.
Thanks, Alina. Insightful sharing. I mean, my personal takeaway, I think, is really about sustainable life. And my interpretations of or reflections on what you share is really integrating a career to be part of life, right? I think so that you can get a sustainable life moving forward. And agility, I think, is something that come across very strongly in your sharing. Maybe with that, Omar, do you agree with Alina, and or what are some of your view when it comes to sustainable career? Omar, any thoughts on that?
Sorry, I lost you, but just now. Very quickly, I think the question was, what do I define a sustainable career to be? In my
That's
mind,
right.
I think it is really about employability over time, constantly being able to find a job or find a vocation, and being able to live a life that you want to live. That's pretty critical as well. There also must be an upwards progression pathway, because I think with all human beings, we aspire to improve ourselves. So the employability must ensure that you are always constantly improving yourself and having a upwards trajectory. And ultimately, the career should also be aligned to your own motivations as much as possible. Because the outcome that we want to pursue with a sustainable career, ultimately, to me, is the one that keeps us happy, healthy, productive, and at the bottom line of it, employable. What I see in terms of today, and it's pretty challenging, but again, it's from the eyes, as the good Alina says, from the perspective of an older person, right? So we're less agile and less flexible. So to me, it is exactly as the good Alina said. When I started work, there was a lot of stability in the marketplace. Today, I think we see a lot of rapid change and a high degree of uncertainty, because there is so much flux in terms of companies, in terms of jobs, in terms of startups and all of that. So that being able to navigate that is something that I think is inherent is an inherent challenge for all of you. Ultimately, looking forward, I think the future is scary in that sense, but at the same time, super exciting. I think looking at it, the good Alina and myself in terms of our career, we're relatively conventional. She started as a lawyer, I started as an accountant, and that was the rest of our lives. But as for you, all of you, as the good Alina says, the ability to pivot and change, that is where it gets really super exciting. So that to my mind is something, being prepared to have a sustainable career within that. You have to be able to plan for this uncertainty. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, handing back to you, Justin. Thank you.
Thanks, Omar. Thank you so much. I think key takeaway really, I think you need to find something that you need to find your own motivations. And I've used the word relevance, right? I think as the industry keep changing, you need to make sure that you're relevant to the upcoming changes. And Omar also shared about to be healthy, productive, because it's a long run marathon, right? So don't kill yourself for a short run. Maybe with that, Darina, come to you. When it comes to sustainable career, how are you seeing it, given that you have also changed your role, right? I think from business to strategy, and now being the chief of risk for one of the big bank. How are you seeing sustainable career mean to you?
Thanks, Justin. A lot like Alina and Omar, when I joined banking in 1990, the most secure role in the bank was that of the branch bank teller. Everybody needed to get to the bank. You need to put money in, you need to take your money out, you need to pay your bills. You'll be queuing, at the bank if you're working on a Friday lunchtime, at least 2 to 3 times a month. I suspect most of those on this, in today's call, particularly millennials, you haven't been to visit a branch bank teller more than over a year ago, if at that, right? We've all gotten so comfortable to doing our banking online. At the opposite end, I still have my mother-in-law who views an ATM suspiciously. But I think her perspective really isn't where the future lies, and this is a lot of it's tied to technological changes, right? So technological changes have changed much of what it means to have a sustainable banking career. Take risk management. Risk management used to be 80% credit risk focus. All right. Who do you lend money to? What do you know about this customer? And do you think they'll survive or not? Now, credit risk remains a big area of attention. We still lose a lot of money and we have to set up provisions. But the scope and skill sets required to do a CRO role meaningfully in today's world, that's increased year on year. I now spend just as much time researching cyber hacking news and what's on the dark web as I do on the CFA traditional approach of financial analysis and model risks. You need to be agile to echo the words of the fellow panelists. When I reflect back, taking the CFA all those years ago gave me the platform of the financial skill set and the mindset of continual learning. Again, to echo my fellow panelists, right? Career options within banking have broadened beyond that accounting degree that Omar mentioned, to encompass broad range of entry options into banking. And within that, you can learn and plot and grow flexibly to navigate into a career that works for you. And that can be staying in credit risk all your life, or you can chop and change and explore who you are, what you want to do, and see what works for you. So I think I agree with my fellow panelists. It's super scary and super exciting in the same breath.
Thank you, Darina, and the rest of the panelists. Right, I think moving on a bit, I think from what does sustainable finance mean? I think now trying to get into the futuristic part of the industries and job role, right? I think there are many primary forces and driver impacting the roles in the industry today. I think a lot of sayings around the influence of fintech, disruptive technology, influx of digitally savvy millennial, borderless, virtual working arrangements, sustainability, climate, etc., right? So there are so many mega trends that's going on. From a CFA Institute perspective, I think we do carry out regular survey with our members and people in the industry. Just want to call out one of the recent one that was done. As per CFA Institute Future of Finance, in short, we call them FOF. We spoke to our members, candidates, people in industries about the future of job and expected changes in their respective career roles in the industry. I thought that it would be interesting to call out 4 key highlights from this global survey that the Institute has produced. Number 1, I think is really about adaptability, right? That come out as number 1 as part of the result from a survey, where we found that an individual role transformed multiple times throughout the journey. I think 3 of the panelists will find a lot of resemblance, right? You could be doing job role A in the past. You are doing job role B today. You could be, and then you will be doing job role C in the future. I think adaptability, constantly staying relevant to the changes in the industries is very, very critical. The second part is about the whole technology trend, right? So we find that individuals always, or at least have tried to differentiate themselves by being a bit more tech savvy in a recent year. The third one is really about the softer side of things, right? Focusing on the character, personality, professionalism, especially under adversity or challenging climax like today, right? A career journey may not be always rosy and glamorous as what we always think, right? There will be a lot of sweat, blood, battle scars that you may have acquired along the way. I mean, even for myself, it's a virtual platform that you may not be able to tell. There are many bullets in my body, and some of them are still bleeding until today, right? So I think the third one is really around the resilient part of the characters that CFA Institute, as part of the result they found, is quite important to highlight that. Lastly, it's really about diversity and inclusivity in a recent time, right? The focus is around the contributions from the diverse group, leverage on each other's strength, listen to differing views and opinion with one single aim, right? To optimize a team or company performance. If I could sum out the survey into 4 words: adaptability, technology, resilience, and diversity, I think those are the main gist of the survey that was carried out by CFA Institute. Maybe with that, we'll come back to Tunku Alina. If you're trying to think about, given the ongoing pandemic today, what should a young professional do today to future-proof their career, or in building their career today for tomorrow?
Okay, thanks, Justin. Before I answer your question, I just wanted to respond to the 4 results that you mentioned on resiliency. So the one thing through experience in Asia, we're not very forgiving of mistakes. But I think going forward, we have to learn that mistakes are good for us. It helps us grow. It helps us learn. The important thing is how you recover from mistakes and how you learn from it. Yeah. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Important thing is you make mistakes early and you get up on your feet and go. So if there's one thing you can take away from me, that's the biggest advice I can give you. Okay, so to answer your question, Justin, to me, so this is the foresight. Yeah, the future of work is going to change. In fact, it's already changing. And I only learned this term very recently. It's Holacracy. So maybe, you know, when you all have time, you look it up. Holacracy, which is a concept of self-management in teams. And this was adopted first by this organization called Zappos.com. In the US, they sell a lot of shoes now. I think they sell a lot more than shoes in 2014. But if you look at banks, I think Singapore, DBS have a kind of like a semblance of that. So the idea behind that is that, you know, in my generation, you have a boss and then you have a second boss down and then it's silo like that. But I think going forward, the idea behind this is that there's no single manager responsible for the team. Instead, the responsibility is spread across the team. So the management is looked at as a collaborative process carried out by highly accountable agents, okay? Which means the concept of personal leadership is involved, yeah? Personal leadership. So as a young professional going forward, you will have to inculcate this personal responsibility for motivation and engagement of yourself and your team. To my mind, it's a 2-step process. The first step is you have to establish the purpose or the why. What is the purpose of your team? Because, you know, there's the teams will come and go. So to understand purpose and why, so whether you are employed by somebody or whether you're going to be your own boss, whether it's going to be a big company or small company, you have to understand the perspective of the task at hand, the perspective of the employer, and then try to match it with your own needs. And while the millennials and the Gen Zs, it's easy for you to shift across industries and positions because you're very agile and adventurous in a short amount of time. For me and my fellow panelists, it takes 30 years to do this. But for this coming generation, it's a lot faster. Yeah, but because it's a lot faster, you have to figure it out also a lot faster. And you got to clarify in your own minds at least what you are expecting from your work experience. What are the values that you want to bring? What are the values of the task or employer at hand? So it's a question of understanding yourself very well and then understanding the expectation and trying to match that. Okay, step 2 is involving a culture of learning and appreciation, meaning members of the team will act as coaches for each other. So first of all, again, it starts with you. You got to be good. You have to be familiar with the surface level processes. You have, even though you might have the right degree or right credentials, still you have to learn what is relevant for the job. And then communicate this with each other. So to me, when you talk about personal leadership, it involves the two sides. All right. On your personal side, your life side, don't forget, remember to continually learn, continually train, engage in extracurricular activities, and be involved in humanitarian and environmental activism. This is very, very important because it will build you a network and relationships. And this network and relationship is the one that you will nurture and take you through your life. And finally, be in touch with the mega trends that is going on in the world and in Malaysia. So in other words, the Malay saying is katak bawah tempurung, right? You just live in your own fishbowl and then that's all that matters. It doesn't work like that anymore. It's a big world. So be aware of what's going on outside, but at the same time, understand and moderate it for our local context. So yeah, that's my direct answer to you, Justin. I hope it helps.
Thank you, Alina. And understand that you're also a strong advocate when it comes to sustainability and climate. How do you see the career prospect when it comes to that? Since that, I think it was ranked one of the top 3 amongst the audience for today.
Okay, this is a passion project of mine, yeah? Sustainability and climate-related career opportunities. As a financial advisor or member of CFA, your cohorts will have a greater expectation on you to explain how they can connect their money to their values that they hold dear. Yeah, millennials and Gen Zs, they care about the products they buy and consume. They want to know where the products come from and where they will end up. For example, fashion industry, H&M, they have set up a foundation whereby they allow their consumers to feel if they spend the money on the clothes, at the end of the day, you can also return the clothes to be remanufactured, meaning there's less wastage and that's a more circular or sustainable way of life. So to your cohorts, this is important. And the ability to connect the ringgit and cents to the meaning in life is very important. And if you can develop this, that will take you way ahead of others. But at the same time, this is a very clued-in generation. And it's important to you to have financial literacy because I think it gives you the decision-making tools as well as a way to measure your values somehow. And because you are or this demographic, 80% of Malaysians going forward 10, 15 years from now, very sensitive and very receptive to good, yeah, the good that businesses do. They tend to be drawn to the companies and businesses that understand this. As a financial advisor, a CFA member, demonstrate that you get this and you get them, then you'll be able to serve them better.
Great, Alina. It looks like CFA is very important. So for those who have not signed up, please do. Right, registration is open now. Thanks, Alina. Moving on to Omar. I think from our sharing this morning, looks like you have changed your role a bit, right? Starting with an accounting firm, moving to a bank, and sovereign wealth fund, to an airline, back to the bank. If someone were to emulate your career path, right, and trying to be as successful as where you are today, what does it take to be where you are today? I think that potentially is the questions that we're coming from.
Thank you, Justin. I think to be fair, first of all, I think the definition of success is different for everybody, and I don't know if my career has been a particular success per se. And Anyway, I think one of the key things to me, I think, starting with, echoing what Tunku Dr Alina was saying earlier today, and also Darina, I think fundamentally at the heart of my career is something that I think Charles Darwin talked about, right? One of his ideas around evolution. I think that the species that tends to survive and thrive are the ones that are most able to adjust and adapt to the changing environment that they find themselves in. And that really was, something that I held close to heart. And I got a lot of good advice at the beginning of my career at university. I think because at university, very much you didn't quite know exactly what you wanted to do. All I know is I didn't want to be poor. That was my motivation in life. And one of the key advice that I received was that maximize your opportunities, maximize your optionality, choose a vocation that enables you to pivot over time. So one of the key things that I did was pursue my chartered accountancy as well as the CFA. Because in my mind, as again, echoing what Tunku Alina was saying, when we started our lives, it was very much, you choose financial services, you choose legal, or you choose doctor, or whatever it was. Those were the key elements as one sort of industry, and you focus on it. So within, I decided I wanted to go into finance or finance and accounting. So I just chose to have that maximization of optionality. And I think that feeds into one of the key things that I feel that has been a cornerstone of what I have today in terms of a career, is that degree of competence, right? You must have a basic degree of competence in your chosen vocation. So for me, being able to have that degree, the chartered accountancy, the CFA, etc., gave me some level of credibility in terms of what I was doing. It doesn't mean that you have to have exactly these things, but to me, that was what I felt I needed to assemble. And today it can take any combination of things. Obviously, CFA is critical for all of you out there today. The other bit, of course, is curiosity and agility. I think, again, echoing what Tunku Dr Alina was saying, and even what Darina was saying earlier, I think you need to always be wanting to learn. I think that is the nature of life. Being able to adapt and adjust to your changing environment means you must be able to learn and derive the right sort of experiences and learnings, I guess, lessons in life that enable you to progress yourself. So just having the certificates alone, Alina was saying, is not enough. You need to be able to assemble a set of experiences as well that make sense to you in building out your career. And lastly, I think for me, it's also, this is where you get over time, is the conviction and experience. So once you have that competence, once you have the that continuous curiosity and agility, I think comes back to then your conviction and leadership skills that builds it up. So being able to come out there and say that, I am able to make decisions, I'm able to demonstrate thought leadership, being able to take ownership. I think those things come with all those elements I said earlier, and that I think progresses you further in life. In terms of the skill sets for going forward, I suppose, to me in finance and accounting, I think basic economics is pretty critical. For banking, I think, as Darina was saying, I think you can't get away. It's becoming more specialist as we go along. There's so many sort of branches now. So being able to land on those bits and pieces, I think, is critical. If you choose investment management or asset management, I think you need to build on your CFA with all the other sort of depths and elements, whether it's on the risk side, etc. So again, it depends on what you want to do. That's my point of view, Justin.
Great, thanks for sharing, Omar. My next question, that leads to my next questions, where if someone trying to plan a career to be a senior leadership role in a bank, what kind of advice that you would give it to them?
Don't do it. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, it's a changing environment. I keep saying, right? Banking is not what it was before. Exactly what Darina was saying. That in the past, there was a very clear-cut sort of pathway. You did your time. As Leon was saying, there's a hierarchy, and you proceed on. That's no longer the case. I think there are many pathways to becoming a bank senior leader. For example, even my organization CIMB, the past 3 CEOs, for example, we've got Dato Sri Nazir, who was a career banker all his life. We had Tunku Dr Zafrul, who is now the finance minister, and he was in banking, and then he moved to other bits and pieces. At one point, he was working for Tune Money, etc., and then he came back to banking and progressed on. And then we have obviously my current CEO, Dato Rahman, who was he was a CEO of a media company at one point. He became a CEO of a private equity company, CEO of one of the national investment company, GLICS investment companies, and then now CEO of a bank. So there's many pathways in that sense, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the key elements remain the same, that you must have a degree of competence. So you must establish, I think, a degree of competence, skill sets, whether it's, having that accounting qualification. A CFA is pretty critical to me, and then build it up with experience across the board. And it can come across, from a risk perspective, from a sort of consumer perspective, consumer banking perspective, or wholesale banking perspective, what I do today, and then it's bring that together and synthesizing that and demonstrating leadership. I think the other component that I forgot to mention, I think, which Tunku Dr Alina mentioned quite early on, was in terms of building your network within that. That's pretty critical also, because I think no man is an island, or woman is an island in that sense. We must always sort of engage with our surroundings, whether it's people within the bank, outside the bank, industry, outside the industry, because you can learn from them and you can pivot from them, and then you can I think, build a good career up into senior leadership.
Thanks, Omar. I think that's really insightful. Moving on to Darina, right? Just would like you to share a bit more in terms of some of the outlook when it comes to risk management related career opportunity, and if any of the audience here today would like to who aspire to be a good risk manager, what are the few things that they should be doing today?
When you think about banking, at our very core, a bank is in the business of balancing sales, which Omar, has his primary role in, execution, and risk management. Many organizations have collapsed, and we can all reference Barings, etc., not due to low sales, but simply poor risk management. With that in mind, when we think back, with hindsight, the old school senior risk managers used to be high IQ, low EQ, passive aggressive, old grumpy, unforgiving men with old memories who were skeptical of everything and a hurdle to jump over. All right. So that's how we used to think about risk management, right? They kind of looked at you like, what scam are you running? This has changed. Like, so many things have changed, right? Risk managers are now considered respected, key partners who provide an alternative perspective. We're an enthusiastic user of data to help portfolio management, and sometimes a basic reality check against the fat tails of numbers. Sometimes people say, no, we will never shut down business for 2 months, right? Look at what the pandemic has taught us of what the world could look like, and what can we do in building resilience in our lives, in our businesses, against such fat tails. And I completely concur with Omar when saying, that basic skills, you need those technical skills. But I'm also a passionate believer in diversity, and different jobs require different personality types. And within my team, I have those who are the passive-aggressive credit risk approvers, right? Who are the number one skeptics who will say, are you sure you're not in bed with the customer on this? I have data analysts who love numbers more than I could ever love chocolate and ice cream. And I have some incredible, passionate climate change advocates. For me, they're all valued, diverse members of my risk management team. They're all valuable because they all bring something different to the table. To get to that CRO role, if you want to be a specialist risk manager, I think there is space in the world for you. But if you want to get to that CRO role, to that leadership role, all the items Dr. Alina and Omar referenced are all relevant. Technical skills are only part of the equation. We can train people up for technical skills. We can train for aptitude. It's much harder to change attitude. We need people who come to the table, and all those attitude elements are the ones, whether or not you have the technical skills, I will always choose someone who's got a great attitude. You know, higher up you go, the more important leadership skills are. Insight, strategic insight's important when you go up. Within risk, you must always be willing to explore the alternative or what ifs. Risk managers are known for thinking outside the herd, and that is our value, right? So you must not be one who kind of goes in with what everybody says, but to be able to step back and says, I hear you, but I hear a different voice, which suggests, or here's some alternative data, which would, encourage you to consider other things. I mean, we're busy now thinking about climate change and how we embark on the way we look at customers going forward. It used to be the case when you look at credit risk, you only look at, will they have the financials to survive, in the next 1 year. We now ask questions about what's your impact on the environment? How do you think you're going to survive, the climate change and the transition risks that come with climate change? And this requires people who are not just have the technical skills, but also the adaptability and the agility and the curiosity to kind of move forward. So it's always about moving forward and kind of getting yourself prepared for that move forward. So I think risk management's a great job. Every day is different. I can go to checking why an ATM is down and what's the risk of it getting stolen, to what's the latest cyber threat. To be a CRO, you really have to have some technical skills, a lot of curiosity skills.
Interesting. Thanks for the insightful sharing. I think we got 8 to 10 minutes more towards the end of the forum. I think there are a lot of questions that are coming in. I think there are 3 broad questions that we'll kind of classify them into. We'll start with an easy one first by one of the CFA members, Sophia, asking about environment, sustainability, and climate, right? If you're seeing that as the future trend, do you think that a formal study in sustainability, climate is important? If it's not, how does someone gain the knowledge and experience of that sort of field and subject matter? Any thoughts, Alina, Darina, in terms of this?
Okay, I'll give a stab at that. All right. So they are only beginning to be formal courses in universities. So you can, if you wish, take a master's for this, and it will definitely add that added dimension and nuance to your career going forward. But having said that, there are also many ad hoc ongoing executive courses that you can take that ranges from 4 to 6 weeks on a part-time basis, self-paced, that I would also encourage you to take. But if you didn't want to do something like that, you could work very hard yourself and do your own self-research, pretend you're doing your own PhD, and do a whole bunch of research yourself, compile it, and think about it, and nothing to stop you. So yeah, but I think it's important that you do understand that really important trend.
I would concur, right? Technology is a great leveler, and it gives you access to whatever interests you, be it gaming, environmental, the undersea, and to use that technology wisely and to be open to what opportunities are in terms of learning. Because at the end of the day, I think those of us who have children, who are married and in that part of our lives, we want to make sure that we leave something behind, something positive, something meaningful, and we want to be part of that positive change. I don't want to be the risk manager who supports more pollution. I think we all want to make sure that what we leave behind is better than what we received.
Great. Moving on to the second part of the questions is really about the changing of role, right? I think different panelists share about reinventing your role. Three of you have been through different roles across your career path. Maybe we would like to invite Omar to share certain perspective. In the midst of changing your role, when a job offer is there, wouldn't that involve certain fear, a certain risk, right? Because you are in a way transitioning from a role which are something that you're currently very comfortable with to something that's completely new, right? And our executive director Caroline asked about, hey, is there any purpose that you set, right, that guide you along the way in switching your role? So what are the risk considerations? Obviously, Omar, you're head of business. Obviously, risk-taking behavior is in you, right? What sort of purpose and principle that you hold closely to yourself when it comes to switching of role?
Well, I can only I reflect on that. I think in one particular instance where it was forced on me, I think, or rather sort of I decided to be more proactive on it, so I apologize. And that was when I first left my first career with my first firm. I was with the firm for 9.5 years, and that was all I knew. That was my also Pricewaterhouse and PricewaterhouseCoopers thereafter. I think what that organization taught me was a lot. I think I got my chartered accountancy there. I got my CFA done there, and there was a clear career progression there with the firm. And I think I learned a lot from there in terms of the outlook on stewardship, on being a responsible person for an organization and all of that. But I found myself, I think, not progressing in the direction that I wanted to. There was some perhaps differences in values and all of that. So I guess it comes back to my point in the beginning. I think a lot of it is you as a person define what you want it to be in terms of your career. You must take responsibility and say, what sort of value sets you have and what sort of outlook you have, what sort of career do you want to have as you go along. And it might change over time. So at that point, I resigned without a job, and it was a big risk, obviously. But I guess I fell back on the belief that I had a degree of competence. That's where, I had the CFA and so on. And I felt there was sort of transferable skills. And I had a period of 3 months to look for a job. And again, I was able to take that time to find an organization I felt that reflected better in terms of my values, my aspirations, and what I wanted to do at that point in my life. And that's why I joined CIMB. It is again, there's various factors that Darina was saying. If you have a family, if you are sort of having to sort of earn a certain amount to maintain a certain standard of living, so that sort of limits the sort of risk that you can take, obviously. But at the same time, I think you also have to balance that against what you feel is right for you in terms of your own, as I keep saying, that career progression and the value set that's relevant for you. So a lot of it is being able to back yourself and balancing that. I mean, Darina will be able to talk with this much better than I can in terms of balancing the risks out, right? The risk of getting that job, the risk of staying in a firm and possibly not realizing your true potential and making that jump. The rest of my career changes, unfortunately, were sort of forced on me more than anything. I think people sort of decided I needed to go join them, and they made an offer that I can't refuse, kind of thing. So that's what happened for the rest of it. So I can't talk to that, but I can talk about that first point when I made that first jump. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Omar. And one interesting question that's on the call out to invite three of you to share is that if you have a time machine in front of you, if there's one thing that you could do to your career, would you continue the path that you have taken, or would you have done it differently? Maybe we'll start with Alina.
That's very difficult question to answer, to tell you the truth, because there were many things I didn't like, but also many things that were good for me. So, so like Omar said, sometimes it's not that you chose something, but you were called to it. So my answer to you is, despite the tough times, despite quite some amount of pain, if I may say so, I would not have changed anything.
Great, Alina. Maybe move on to Darina. Should you have given a choice again, would you be a CRO or would you be a cook?
I think I can be a cook and be a CRO. I think you determine who you are, what you want to do with your life, and you take ownership and control of your life. I think looking back is interesting insofar as it gives you some considerations for where the future lies. But I think if you dwell on the past, you miss the opportunities that lie ahead of you. Like I said, I've learned by risk management, having a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D in my back pocket. I'm always open to change. I'm always curious. I'm always looking to learn. I'm always looking to go forward. Whether I stumble forward, whether I fail, whether I made some bad choices, it's okay. The only regrets I have are the regrets of things I didn't choose, not the choices I have made. So I'm happy to be where I am. I have no complaints. How my life has panned out. Has it been a bed of roses? No. Have I, like Omar, quit without a job in hand? Absolutely. Been there, done that. Printed out business cards which had no corporate titles just to make myself feel better. But it's okay, because you have to believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, who will?
Thank you, Darina. Omar?
Well, like that song, regrets, I have a few, kind of thing. Of course, at the end of the day, I echo what Darina was saying. At the end of the day, I think you live your one life, right? And there's no sort of control option and the experiment. This is the live experiment, and that's it. If my life was lived without constraints, obviously I would choose different things to do with my life and be more meaningful to society in that sense, ideally. And again, I think it's facing all of you out there. We all live within constraints. I think the key thing, as Darina was saying, is being able to be agile and flexible to navigate those constraints, as I think Tunku was saying, but live your values as well. I think that's very critical. And ultimately, I think when you get to where you get to in 20, 30 years' time, to be able to say and look back that you lived what, in terms of your career, the life that you wanted to live, the right work-life balance, the right sort of value sets, being able to retain those over time, and you did the best you could within the constraints that you were living within, and that's it. That really is it, I think.
Thank you, Omar. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I think that comes to the end of the forum for today. I thoroughly enjoy the discussions with the three distinguished panelists. There are a lot for me personally to reflect on my own career development and planning. All right. Maybe we'll kind of sum out the forum in five key categories. Number one is about the panelists spoke about personal responsibility, stewardship, ownership. You take charge of your own career. You decide how you want to move ahead and charge ahead, right? Second thing is really about a culture of learning, making mistakes. Darina talks about making bad choices along the way. I think those are part of the learning process, right? So continue embrace the culture of learning. I think that's very critical. The third part, I think the panelists spoke a lot in terms of the agility, the flexibility, the adaptability to stay relevant to the industry development. Omar shared a lot in terms of opportunistic, right? Being when you see the opportunities there, take a bit of risk, take a bit of calculated risk, and then go for it, right? The fourth one is really about the purpose. Ask yourself a question: why are you here today? What are you doing? What are you doing today? To have a bit of convictions, questioning yourself a lot in terms of your purpose, the values, the principles. I think those are very important. The fifth one, I think, is about the network of people that you surround yourself, right? The support ecosystem, the mentorship. A lot of volunteers have supported CFA Institute and Society of Malaysia across the past years. I met a lot of volunteers, right? I think this is also one of the opportunity that you could meet industry mentors like Tunku Alina, Darina, Omar, and the rest of the volunteers on the board. I think networking is very key to determine the success, right? So to sum up the five: personal responsibility, cultural learning, agility, the purpose and the why, and the network of people. I'm hoping that by achieving the above five elements, embracing them, you are able to achieve your sustainable career and ultimately a sustainable life ahead, right? So with that, we'd like to thank the distinguished panelists. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. It's a very light, interactive, and insightful one. Thank you so much for being with CFA Society Malaysia today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Omar and Darina as well. Lovely.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Justin and panelists, for sharing with us the insights on how organizations adapt and build teams with skill sets that are able to cater to the future. Your vast experience and knowledge is an inspiration to all of us. So we'll now move on to our career portal launch and lucky draw session. But before that, we'd like to let you know that our logistic team will be ending this forum and it will be released into our social launch. Please don't leave the portal yet. We'll bring you back to the main stage very quickly. The reason that we need to end this session and release you to the social launch is for us to generate an attendance report for our lucky draw later. Please bear with us in a bit and I'll see you back in here a bit.